Hello, I'm Dr. James Bogash, expert in health and longevity and creator of Bogash Life and Balance. And today, just in case you weren't scared enough, we're going to talk about the next pandemic, which is actually on its way and is becoming worse as a result of the current pandemic. And in case you think that nothing could potentially be worse, this current pandemic already kills some 800,000 people a year worldwide, and it's estimated that this could be as many as 10 million people per year by 2050. So that will dwarf whatever we're experiencing right now, and this has to do with antibiotic resistance and the development of superbugs. And we'll talk about why I think that antibiotic resistance is not the real problem, and we'll also talk about what to do and some ideas how you can start today to manage this and make sure that this doesn't become the demon worse than it already is. To give you an idea of how bad this is, it used to take some 21 years for a brand new antibiotic to become just short of worthless. Now, a brand new antibiotic within a year has started to outlive its usefulness. And we now have really scary bacteria like carbapenem resistant Enterobacter or CBE or CRE that kill about 1,100 a year in the United States. C. diff, 100,000 a year are hospitalized with 15,000 deaths per year. It's crazy when you start adding up the numbers, how many people die from bacterial infections that we can't control. Stories of surgeons taking out an organ purely because we can't kill the bacteria that's growing in it. That happens sometimes with C. diff, that we can't control the bacteria, so we just remove a portion of the colon. It's scary with that because we just think it's a bacterial infection. We'll just take some antibiotics and we'll be fine. But that is continually not being the case. And most people are familiar with MRSA, or methicillin-resistant Streptococcus aureus. And so we all heard about MRSA, but MRSA is just one of many different bacteria that we have a really hard time killing off. And there aren't a whole lot of new antibiotics in the pipeline because if you're a drug company and you could make this fringe antibiotic, or you could make a drug that cures, or no drug cures, a drug that will manage diabetes, well then you're going to make a tremendous amount of money on the lifestyle drug versus the antibiotic. So the other challenge, two other factors is in 2018, we wrote enough prescriptions in the United States to have 7 prescriptions for every 10 people living. But personally, I haven't had an antibiotic, it's probably been 35 years, maybe a little bit longer. Maybe when I had my wisdom teeth pulled when I was 21, 22, but certainly not since then. There's nothing I've ever felt the need that my own body couldn't mount a defense against. And the more we use antibiotics, the less effective they become both inside and in society. But even more problematic is during the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, that a recent study looked at 2,000 hospitalized COVID patients, and 72% of them were put on antibiotics, despite the fact that only 8% of them had evidence of a bacterial infection. So it's like we have all this, we've spent years trying to develop what's called antibiotic stewardship, meaning use it only when appropriate. And then this hits, the pandemic hits, and that completely gets blown out the window, and we just start throwing antibiotics at everything. And it's just going to make everything that much worse. So 2 things to have a conversation is, first, I don't consider antibiotic resistance the problem for the individual. It's the destruction of the normal flora that completely ruins our health, and the fact that it takes years of dedicated work to rebuild a flora after a single course of antibiotics, that to me is the biggest concern. And if patients were more worried about their own internal flora, then maybe doctors wouldn't be so quick to give prescriptions if patients weren't asking for them for things that they clearly don't need them for. The other thing, a huge amount of antibiotics are used on livestock to make them grow faster. Almost all of the farm-raised salmon, which you shouldn't be eating farm-raised salmon anyway. The bulk of farm-raised salmon is raised with antibiotics, so that salmon that you think is eating, you think that's healthy for you, and that's why you're eating it, is not. So stay away from farmed fish in general, but certainly farmed salmon, and no tilapia. But fast food joints are notorious for using low-quality meats that are raised with all kinds of antibiotics. There are charts that are available. I'll put one in the description. And it's just sad. We're the only two companies that do their best that got an A rating were Chipotle and Panera. Everybody else, McDonald's got a C, surprisingly. All the other fast food chains, they're all lumped under the F, failing category. So avoiding fast food can actually help with this whole antibiotic-resistant up-and-coming pandemic. But you need to choose your foods wisely. And avoiding fast food is just one other way. The other thing is just, if you don't force your doctor to give you antibiotics. Just because you went there doesn't mean you're going to leave with something. So let them make the decision about what you need. Don't go in telling them you need antibiotics, because that's not usually the case. And let your body actually fight something off. If you've got 104 fever and you've got a kidney infection, maybe not the time. But short of that, if you've got an upper respiratory tract infection or sinus infection, the antibiotics, they're not going to help you that much. And they're going to create a lot more harm, both for you as the individual and for society in general. So, as always, this was actually an editorial on a Medscape, which is not accessible, so I won't put a link to that, but I will put some resources in the description. Make sure you like this video, share it with somebody who you think needs the information, and subscribe to the channel.